Hey guys, welcome to Home Automation at Home. In the last video, I showed you guys how to set up an ESP8266 with some RGB LED strip and turn it into a Wi-Fi enabled mood light. In this video, I'm going to show you how to link that mood light that we built in the last video to Apple's HomeKit on your phone or whatever other iOS device you have. Now, if you haven't seen the first part of this video, go and check that out. It's on screen now, or also there's a link in the description. Check that out and it will show you how to build and set up the code on the ESP module for this mood light. Now here in part 2, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the HomeKit Accessory server, HAP-NodeJS, and install a mood light accessory into it. Now you might be wondering why I'm not on the Raspberry Pi that I've been using in all of these videos. And quite simply, it's because I could not get, for the life of me, HAP-NodeJS installed on my Raspberry Pi. I tried all sorts of different things. I tried all these things that I've listed over here, all these steps, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I set myself up an Ubuntu VM on my laptop, and that's what we're going to be using. Now, if you do get it running on your Raspberry Pi, definitely let me know in the comments. And, you know, if you follow this list and it works on your Raspberry Pi, I don't know what's wrong with mine. So, for this video, we're using an installation of Ubuntu 14.04. So, the first thing that we need to do is install Node.js 4 or above. So this line adds the repository for that and updates the repository list. So the next step here is to install a whole bunch of programs that HAP-NodeJS requires to run. So I'm going to just kind of paste that over here and get all of those installing. And once those are all installed, we'll move on and clone the HAP-NodeJS repository from GitHub. Alright, so I'm going to clone that. Oh, wrong thing. Now I'm going to clone that. And I'm going to move into it. And I'm going to install all of the built-in components to this program. Oops. Now, we have this one last here, npm install mqtt. That's because the HAP-NodeJS software does not automatically come with, or does not automatically list the mqtt module as being required for its installation. But since all of our accessories and the mood light that we built is running off of MQTT as the way to communicate to our system, we're going to install that as well. Alright, and there we go. Now it is all installed, all set up, and we can go ahead and take a look at the code for the accessory that we're going to be running. Alright, so back on my Mac here for looking at the accessory code. And I'm just going to state right off the bat that I don't use JavaScript. I'm not good at it. Before this, I'd never even used it. So, yeah, I apologize if my code is just atrocious looking. I've basically been copying and pasting and kind of figuring my way around. So if you're looking at this and you're just sitting there like, WTF, why does this person not know how to code? I'm sorry. I don't use JavaScript. So with that being said, let's get into how this all works. So the first thing you need to know is that for each accessory you want to add to your HomeKit setup, for each item, be it a light, an outlet, a sensor, whatever it is, you need to have one of these accessory files. So this being our first accessory that we're making in HomeKit, I'm just calling it RGB light _ accessory. And the underscore accessory is necessary for each thing. You can't just make RGB light.js. It has to be underscore accessory. So Each file will be its own unique thing to control each accessory, each node. So first things first is we have these settings here that you need to change to match your setup. Some of them need to be unique for each module on your system, each accessory, and some of them just need to match your setup. So the first three, so these first three here are the name that's going to show up on your iOS device, a unique ID for your accessory, so this needs to be unique for each file, for each new accessory that you add, this needs to be unique, as well as this username here also needs to be unique to the module. Otherwise it will either confuse / screw up HomeKit on your iOS device and you might need to completely reset up your system, or it might just screw with HAP-NodeJS. I've had to go both ways. So make sure that these three are all unique before even launching HAP-NodeJS in the first place. Now these two here just need to be unique to your setup. So the MQTT IP, that's the IP address of your MQTT server. If you do have this running, both the MQTT server and HAP-NodeJS on the same computer, then just use localhost 127.0.0.1. Otherwise, use the your local IP address of your MQTT server. And then the light topic is the topic for your light on that server. So then we get into a little bit of setup of the MQTT stuff. So we create a MQTT variable and we set up the options, and then we create a client and connect that to the MQTT server or client. And we don't have anything that's happening when we get a message. We're not subscribing to anything here. So this on message is not really used. You could probably even remove that from the code. We do a little bit of HomeKit setup here. So this sets up our unique ID that we did and our username. And down here, and this pin code here is what iOS is going to ask you to put in as the pin code when you set up the accessory. So I just leave them all the same. Maybe it's not the safest way to do it, but it works. I'm not even sure if you can really change this. I haven't even tried, honestly. So then what we're going to do is add to our light. So our light, anything light dot is our accessory. Our accessory is light. So here we're just adding the basic service of a light on HomeKit. So we do light.add_service, the characteristic of on, and when we do a get, when we ask for the state on or off, it runs this callback function here that we'll get to in a moment. And then down here is the set. So anytime we set a value on our iOS device, it'll call this function here. So we added the light bulb service, and one of the main services is on, which is the on-off state, and we did the get and set functions for that. Now, there are three other types of services that can be added to a light: brightness, saturation, and hue. So we do the exact same thing that we did up here, and we add our brightness set and get functions, our saturation set and get functions, and our hue set and get functions. Now, I'm not going through this as well as I do with C, because honestly, I don't even know what half of this means. I just know that it took me a long time to write all this and figure out all the things to copy and paste, and I eventually got it to work the way I wanted. But if you know JavaScript, or you care to actually look up how JavaScript works, then you can understand this honestly better than I do. So once we have all those set up, I created a a variable, but I think this is more equivalent to a class. So we create our light action class, and that has current state, brightness, hue, saturation, and the last brightness, hue, saturation. So we have current and last, and basically we use these to check whether the current is different from the last, and if it is, we can send an update to the light, and if it's not, then we ignore it. So we have a bunch of functions. Again, we have our get and set state functions. So these are the things that we're setting up here, all these callbacks and functions. This is the meat of it all down here. So we have for our on characteristic, we have a get and set. And remember, the on characteristic in our light is actually just enabling or disabling the mood lamp ability, basically having it auto-rotate through colors or not. So that's kind of special on its own here. And then we have our get set for our brightness, saturation, and hues. And because when we want to set any of these, when we want to update any of these, we can't just send the saturation to the light. Because as we wrote it before, in the last video you saw, it's actually expecting to have hue, saturation, and brightness all in one string, all sent at once. You can't just piecemeal update it. So the way that we deal with that is that each time we set a new brightness, let's say, we say that the current brightness is equal to the new brightness passed to the function, and then we call update light. And update light goes ahead and first of all checks to see if there's any difference in the hue, brightness, or saturation. And if there is, we basically create a string to send. We concatenate the hue, the brightness, hue, and saturation, and we send that, we publish it through our client as one long comma separated string. So this gets around having each of these updated piecemeal. It actually updates the entire state of the device all at once. And when we do that, we say that our last states are equal to the current states, so that if we call these again and there's no change, it doesn't just spam our device over and over and over with changes. So that's how that works there. And then down here at the bottom, I have this little automatic 2-second interval here, which just goes ahead and updates the iOS device with the current states of on, brightness, hue, and saturation. So without this little function here firing every 2 seconds, you could probably even make it 5 seconds, your iOS device, whenever you go and you look at an accessory, won't have the current state. It basically won't tell it what the current state is, and HomeKit doesn't automatically remember whatever the last thing it set was. The device actually has to broadcast to your iOS device and say, hey, I'm, at 50% brightness, whatever saturation, it has to send those. So this is just a little function that automatically will just, every 2 seconds, send out a ping to your device and say, hey, these are the current settings. So yeah, that's all that there is to this. I really honestly do apologize for not being able to explain it as clearly as somebody who does know JavaScript a lot better than I do, but hopefully you can, kind of work your way through this and figure out how everything works. And, at least you have the code here that I wrote for you guys to get what we built in the last video working, or hopefully working. So now that we've seen the code, let's see how to add it into HAP-NodeJS and get it all running. Alright, so back on our server here, you can see I have the RGB light accessory here that we were just looking at. And to add this in, close that saving. And to add this in to your HAP-NodeJS setup, we're going to copy it into the HAP-NodeJS folder under Accessories. Now you can see it came with a lot of accessories to begin with, and these are all pretty basically useless. So if you want, you can go ahead and just select all of them except for yours and except for this types.js, and just go ahead and delete them. That way you don't have a whole bunch of fake accessories showing up. So we go back to the terminal here, and to launch HAP-NodeJS, you do node and then core.js. Now, there's also bridged core.js, and what makes them slightly different from each other is that you can either have HAP-NodeJS run as a bridge accessory or as show all the accessories separately. So a bridged accessory shows up on iOS as a single accessory that has control over a bunch of other sub-accessories. And I don't really know why you'd want that. I guess perhaps if you wanted to have something like the Philips Hue lights, I'm guessing that bridge shows up as a single bridge, and then all the accessories, all the lights on the system show up as submodules inside of that accessory. So I just use core.js, and that lets each accessory show up on its own. So now that this is running, let's take a look and see how to set it up on our iOS device. So since the last video, I found this, it was a broken LED desk lamp, and you might be able to tell, I have actually implemented the mood light that we built straight into this. So I just took the ESP module, routed my 12-volt wire up through this, and wired it up to there. So that looks a little bit different from what we had at the beginning from the last video, which looked a little bit more like this. I have a few of these lying around, so yeah, it looked a little bit like this, but basically I just stuck this here inside of this to make a really nice, convenient little light. So to set it up on iOS, you need to go ahead and download a HomeKit app. So Apple doesn't supply HomeKit app. You actually need to go and download a separate app that supports HomeKit. The app that I have is just called Home. And so if I go into Home and I go and I add a service, I can see there's our RGB light that we made. And I say add anyway. And then it brings up this screen. Now most real HomeKit devices, you can just scan that little accessory code. But on here, since this is not made for Apple, we go and we click this little enter code manually button, and it brings up this screen. Now this is that little pin number I was saying. So I remember it was 031555154, and it adds it successfully. And now we can go to RGB light here, and if I swipe up the brightness, look at that, our light came on. And you can go and make it whatever color you want, green, red, and I know it doesn't look all that special with this light here blasting a couple 100 watts of light, but I promise you that in the dark or in just a regularly lit room, this light looks awesome. So yeah, there you have it. Now you can build your own home automated HomeKit RGB lights and put them wherever you want in your house. And you can also click the on button, and that should automatically start setting it to go and fade through the color wheel. Yeah, so that's all it really is for setting up this light. I know it's been a long couple videos, but hey, now you can put your own accessories and make your own HomeKit devices. Now that's pretty freaking cool, because You can also integrate these directly with any other HomeKit devices that maybe you bought. I personally have the Philips Hue lights, and this works perfectly if you go to different scenes that you can set up and have automatic timed triggers. You can set groups. I could tell Siri make all of the lights in my bedroom blue, and she'll make all the lights in my bedroom blue, including this one. So it's pretty cool. If you like these videos, definitely subscribe to this channel. I'm gonna keep trying to put more videos out. I try to put out a video every week, but you know, sometimes I fall behind and don't put out a video for a couple weeks. But hey, you know, I have a real life and, you know, got things to do. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments. If something doesn't work for you, also let me know in the comments. You can also find me at ItKindaWorks.com and on Twitter at ItKindaWorks Inc. All right, I'll see you guys later.